Hello, and welcome back to Kick Butt Turbo Nerds. I'm your best friend, Camden Nikolai.
And I'm your other best friend, Neil Kalef.
And we're here to kick butts and be nerds, and we're all out of butts, so let's get started.
With us today is our very first, very special guest, Rosie Kalef.
Yay!
Hey!
Welcome.
Thank you.
What's going on?
Oh my gosh, we're just hanging out in Florida.
We are.
So much fun.
Oh, yeah,
Weather.
that's another thing that's different. This is our first episode we're recording in the same room.
That's true.
Yeah,
Neil and I
we're
haven't
all
seen
in
each
the
other
same room.
since
Camden and Rose
2019.
are both in Florida.
Yeah.
And we're all in the same room.
Which
and it's
is
weird, but
crazy.
it's fun.
I know. I'm
Yeah,
looking
it's
at
really
your
fun,
face
yeah.
while we're recording,
It is
and it's
weird.
not through a tiny screen.
That is true. And Rose is here
And I'm
from
here.
all the way from sunny, snowy Chicago.
From Chicago,
from the
although
Windy City.
it's like nice this weekend. So I
Is
went
it?
from Chicago, where I thought it was going to be cold, to Florida, but it's like in the 60s in Chicago.
Is it really?
It was
Yeah.
35 when I left Columbus, so I'm
Wow.
jealous of Chicago weather right now.
It
which
was
is
nicer
something I
in
don't
Chicago
say
than it
often.
was in Columbus?
I
Yeah,
know.
which doesn't really happen.
No,
I feel
we
like.
switched.
Yeah.
We switched spots.
But it's nice to be in Florida.
Yeah, it's really
It's
beautiful
just
here.
the sunshine. It
Despite
just
all
makes
my
you so happy.
opinions
Yeah.
on Florida,
Yeah.
it is very nice to be in a warm climate.
And also with the cat.
Oh,
Also
yes.
with Nigel,
Our cat Nigel,
the little baby Nigel.
Who is,
He's-
you
So-
probably can't hear him, but I can hear him in the background
He's-
playing with rolling around on the ground with some paper.
He's so sweet. He's just a big baby. He's the size of
He's a
of
big baby.
fetus.
He's
He's bigger than a fetus.
He's
Well,
the
yeah.
size of a human child.
He's the size of a
he's
toddler.
He's toddlers are not that small.
No, he's not the size of a toddler. He's the size of maybe like a 2-year-old.
He's a big baby.
No.
Is a 2-year-old baby not a toddler?
That's a toddler.
No.
I'd say he's like the
2-year-old
size
baby
of
is
like
not a
a.
toddler. 3-year-old is what
No,
toddlers are.
toddlers
Yes.
are like 1.5.
He's big.
After
He's
they
baby
start
size. We can
walking,
leave it there.
toddling around, that's a toddler.
Well, when he's sitting like a human child,
he
with
looks like a
his,
toddler.
Yes.
Oh
When
my
he
gosh, last
sits
night,
hanging
was it
out.
last night
upright.
or the night before that we were all outside and he was sitting like a person?
It was last
Yeah.
night.
And your
I
dad
know it was
called
Friday
him the
night.
Godfather?
No, that was-
Yes.
And I
Because
thought it
he
was the
sits
funniest
upright
thing
with
ever.
his legs splayed.
Like a person. And
Like
he
a
has such a
person.
big little belly.
Yes.
Because he has a primordial pouch. There we go. That's the word.
Yes.
Which is a phrase I'd never heard.
Yeah.
I hadn't either.
Apparently that's the reason he's got such a droopy belly.
Yeah. He's so handsome, though. He's
He
a
is.
black
So
cat.
He is
handsome.
pitch
We-
black.
we should
You
post
can
a
Black
picture of
cat
him on
with
Instagram.
like bright
We'll
yellow
post
eyes.
a picture of him. Yeah.
And all you can see in the darkness is his eyes.
Yeah, he disappears. And even sometimes his eyes don't glow as much as they should.
No, they're just like yellow.
Yeah.
Little Nige. He's so
Little Nige.
cute.
He's so precious.
He's such a little baby. But yeah, so it's so exciting to have our first guest
Yeah.
on.
Episode 4.
Welcome.
I
You do the
am
honors of being our
honored.
first guest.
Yeah.
I'm really honored to be the first guest. I feel like I bullied my way to being in a
No,
little
No,
bit.
no,
I'm
you were
like,
hoping
Neil
to
brought
get
it up
some
one
guests.
time, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I want her on the podcast."
Yes.
And then I
It
was
was
like,
kind
"Are
of
we still
assumed
recording
you were
with
gonna
Rose?
be
Are we
on."
still recording with Rose?"
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I'm so excited to be here. I have been wanting to just sit down and do a podcast forever, and I'm glad that I have this outlet with you
I know,
guys.
it's so exciting.
And maybe
I'm
you'll
so
start your own.
I'm so excited to see what you talk about. When you mentioned
Yeah,
it in
I know.
the car last night, I was like,
Yes,
"Ooh,
I
got
do have a
giddy about
topic,
it."
something that, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll get
I'm
there.
excited.
Oh yeah,
I'm
and
excited
last
to be
night we
here.
went to a concert together. We went to go see
Yes.
Jody and
We saw
Lizzie
Jody.
McAlpine, and we saw Orla Gartland. We got to meet her after
It
the
was
show, and she was
crazy.
wonderful.
Oh my god.
No big
Please,
deal.
Orla, if
She-
she ever listens to this,
right?
I will marry you.
Or
in
if
a
you're listening to this,
second.
please be a guest.
Please,
Please
come be
you
a
were so
guest.
nice when we met you, and you complimented my
I
pants.
should have asked her last night if she wanted to be a guest.
I wonder what she would have said. Like,
I know. If I'd have given her my email address, do you
giving
think
her our podcast
the
email.
podcast email address? Do you think that she would have reached out?
She's so
Maybe.
busy.
She
She's
is so busy.
She's a
She
busy
is
They
lady.
had a
tour.
10-hour drive.
I know.
Yeah,
They were
they're
where did
Orleans
they say
now.
they were driving?
New Orleans.
New Orleans, yeah.
They're there now. Ugh,
Yeah.
But it was so wonderful talking to everybody last
I
night.
know.
Yeah.
And
That
all
was
the
such a
people
great
there,
her
show.
like all
bandmate,
the.
what was his name? You have the matching tattoo
Pete?
with him.
Oh
Pete.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no,
No,
the
no.
drummer.
Oh, the drummer.
He's the bass player.
What's his name?
I can't remember off the top of my
I'm
head.
so sorry. I can't
Yeah.
remember your name, but you were lovely to chat with.
Yes, you were so lovely, and we have matching tattoos, and
Yes.
you were just a dear. So that
And you're
was
very attractive, and your accent is gorgeous.
Really, really nice.
Smooth.
Lizzie, if you're listening to this, I'm so sorry that somebody fainted during your set.
Somebody
That was
passed
so
out.
yeah.
That was
sad.
so sad.
It was
She,
so sad.
I felt so bad for her. She didn't know what to do.
She was like, "Do I just keep going?" And I was
and
like,
it was
yes.
just her on stage.
Yes,
Not like she has a
queen.
band with
No,
her.
it was just her in front of the curtain. Like, she didn't have much room either.
Yeah.
But she was wonderful. She
was
is
great.
phenomenal. Like, it was so good. It was so good.
She has a really beautiful live voice.
Yes, she does. And, like, I knew that, but, like, seeing her live, like, really proved that. It was so gorgeous. Anyways, it's Neil up first this episode.
I'm gonna figure out what his name is.
Okay. But he was lovely to talk to. He had a very nice accent.
He did have a very nice accent.
And I'm very glad that he came back over so that I could point out my tattoo, because I was too nervous.
I know,
the
he
first
came by
time.
super quick the first time, and you, like, really wanted to say hi, and then he disappeared, and then, like, 30 minutes later he came back out and was just schmoozing.
Yeah, he came back out and schmoozed with us because Dodie had already came and left, so they were, like, coming back out to get things.
Ross
Ross?
Crabe. That's it. I knew his name was Ross, but I couldn't remember his last name, and I didn't want to be like, his name's Ross, and
Ross
then not
Crabe
know his last
Drops.
name.
He has a website.
There he is.
Oh,
Picture of him.
oh my gosh, there he is.
He's a sweetie.
Glasgow born.
He threw his drumsticks out at the end of the show, and I was, like, obviously he just kind of tossed them into the front, but I was really hoping he would just chuck them into the back as hard as he could. We were not at the front.
No, we were in, like, the middle back.
Yeah.
But
it was
but
also
it was
standing
still,
room
like,
only.
really nice,
standing room
though.
only. It was a small venue.
It was
so
a very small
not
venue.
hard to see.
Yeah.
And it was very hot, which is why somebody passed out during the opener.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, anyways.
Okay. To completely shift gears,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go first.
Yay.
So it's actually perfect. I wasn't planning this, but it's perfect that you're here.
Okay.
Because what I want to talk about are some short stories that I read when I was in high school with Dr. E.
Oh.
When I was in World Lit with Dr. E.
Dr.
Echeverria Morales. We did. Did you have her for?
I did. Yeah.
You had her for World Lit?
No, it wasn't World Lit. It was like English.
Because in our World Lit class, we did a unit on magical realism, which is when I was gonna also maybe segue, depending on how much time we have. I was thinking about segueing into Pan's Labyrinth.
Ooh.
If I don't talk about it this time, I might talk about it a later time. Have you both seen it?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's an incredible movie. We started watching it with her, and then she was out one day, and we had a sub, and the sub realized that this was, a rated R movie because it's really dark and there's violence and scary stuff, and he said, nope, we're not watching this, and he turned it off, and all of us went home that day, and all of us watched the rest of the movie that night.
Well, yeah.
It's a good
but
movie.
it's an incredible movie.
Yeah.
And so this genre, the stories I want to talk about, it's these two very specific authors. They're both Argentinian authors from, like the mid 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is Jorge Luis Borges,
Yes.
who, he had his like most famous collection of works called Ficciones,
Mm-hmm.
and Julio Cortázar is the other one. And the two of them wrote some stories that I think about these stories all the time. That's like a common thing that keeps happening with this podcast, is like these things and stuff that I heard or learned about like years ago that I think about all the time, and finally I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna like actually look into these.
Like
These
the
stories
whole point.
I read with Miss Moreno,
Oh yeah, that makes sense.
one of our English teachers from middle school, high school, passed away very suddenly in the middle of the year, and it was a tragedy in our school. And
But she was an incredible
she
teacher.
was an amazing teacher, and that's who I heard these stories from.
Yeah.
I learned it with her.
I'm glad that you also heard some of these stories. Like
Yeah.
the ones that I want to talk about. There's a couple of them. I'm just gonna like talk about the plots of them and like what's so cool about them. The first one, it's super short. It's only like a page long, and it's probably my favorite one. It's called The Continuity of Parks. I don't know if that means anything to you off the bat. The story is about a man who is sitting in his apartment, sitting in like this green velvet high back chair, reading this story. And this story is this tale of, romance and adultery and drama, and it's about this man and this woman. She's like coming onto him and he's pushing her away, and there's all this drama, and he has this dagger hidden away, and there's all this drama. I think he maybe kills her, and I think she cheated on him, and he kills her, and he's going to go find the man that she cheated on him with. And this guy who's reading this story in his apartment in his chair is reading about this man as he is running through the streets to the house of the man that she cheated with, and he runs up the stairs, and he bursts in the door as he approaches from behind a green velvet chair in which a man is sitting reading a book as he approaches with his dagger about to kill this man. And the way that this story just blends what's real and what's not, there's so many ways to interpret what's happening. Is it just this guy's reading the story, has this vivid imagination? Is he in the story? Is he the guy that was cheated with? It blows my mind. That's what a lot of these stories do, is just blending this, it's magical realism. It's this, it's blending real life with these crazy, fantastical ideas. And not all of them have like crazy twists like that. Some of them do. But that story is one of my favorites.
Wow, yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So there's a couple others that I wanted to mention too. There's one that I am sure you guys have heard of. It's called Motorcycle.
It's called Motorcycle.
It's not called Motorcycle.
It is.
It's called The Library of Babel. There's also, it's like, the concept of it is super famous because there's also like this website.
Yeah.
The premise is basically, within the story, there is the universe, which is also known as the library. And it is made up of this series of identical hexagonal rooms, and every room has four walls of books, and 2 like doorway walls. And they have like little tiny spaces for like sleeping and a restroom. And every hexagon has a hallway that leads to more hexagons. There are spiral staircases that lead up and down to other levels. And the entire library is just, it's the entire universe in which the entire human civilization lives. And the whole premise is that every room in this library contains 5 shelves, and every shelf has 32 books, and every book has 410 pages with 40 lines a page and 80 characters a line. And every book is a combination of exactly 25 letters that are in the 25-letter alphabet in this universe. And every book is some essentially random combination of these letters. Yeah. So what exists in real life, there's this website that some people made that is essentially the same premise, where it's like just an nearly infinite collection of every combination of letters to make different words. And you can go and you can search for like your name or like the entire text of the first chapter of The Great Gatsby, and you can find it in there, and it'll be volume 7 million.
That was in a Vsauce episode, right?
I think it was. I think it was one of the...
this sounds very familiar to me, and I went on a big deep dive on
one
this.
Of the dongs, one of the things to do
when
online now, guys.
When we first became friends and I got back into Vsauce because we were talking about it a lot, I think I watched this episode.
This is our second Vsauce name drop on this podcast, by the way.
Well, that's us for you.
That's true. Anyway, like, there's a premise to this story. The story follows, like, this one man who lives in the library, and there's, like, factions who exist because there's, like, religions based around the library, because there's 2, like, rules of the library, which is that it has existed forever, meaning it had to have been created by some god, and that there are exactly 25 different written characters, meaning that if it's only, this many books with this many lines, with this many characters, it has to be finite. So there's these religions built around how somewhere in this universe there has to be a book that completely describes everybody's life and completely accurately predicts everybody's future. And so people go out searching for these books, and there's these other factions that believe in, like, I think they call him, like, the Great Librarian, who is someone who is said to have found the book that explains how to decode every book in the library, and therefore is essentially a god.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so
this
the
is
main
fascinating.
character,
This is
right?
Really interesting.
Every
like,
one of
story.
these stories, it just makes you think. They're all allegorical, they're all metaphorical, which I could get into, but I'm not in an AP English class right now, so I don't feel like diving into the literary analysis of them, but just the way that they deal.
Library of Babel was a short story.
Yeah.
I just knew it from the website.
So I feel like a lot of people have probably heard of this website and not the story itself, so I'm glad to kind of
read the story and
bring this,
I'm looking it up right now.
Look it up. Everybody, all of these stories that I'm going to mention, everybody should read because they're all just mind-blowing, but this one especially because it just, the concepts it deals with of how there could be these books that completely predict someone's life, but they're impossible to find. And now the narrator's talking about how, like, the human race is essentially on the verge of extinction. There have been wars between different factions who have killed each other over trying to find, you know, the grand meaning of life in these books. But even if the human race goes extinct, the library will endure forever. And he has this theory that the library is actually infinite, and that it's cyclical, and that, you know, you can reach the end and it'll just take you all the way back around to the beginning. And it's just fascinating to me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm looking at the website right now,
Same.
and I'm like on the random page generator, and I have it highlighted to like show me on the page things that resemble English words.
Yeah.
And it's like nothing until you see gasp and hot and says, like,
just in
all
the middle
next
of this,
to each other,
right.
and it's like
Like,
what?
I can search. I'm gonna search Kick Butt Turbo Nerds. Let's see where it finds it. Exact match. The title of this chapter, or of this volume, is YVDZZXEMTVZMV.NJ, on page 48. And if you go to page 48 of 410 of this volume, it's just 4 words, Kick Butt Turbo Nerds. Or you can find, it shows you like, where you could find it in the middle of a random volume that's completely just filled with gibberish text. Page 187 of 410 in this volume, I'm not even going to read the title because it's all gibberish, but right in the middle, INGGZSV.Q, Kick Butt Turbo Nerds, RVGHZDV, it's just gibberish, but it's all there. And that's such a crazy concept to me.
Yeah, it's wild.
I think I'll probably mention just one more.
Yeah.
The last story is called The Circular Ruins, and this one is also by Borges. Continuity of Parks is by Cortázar. Library of Babel is by Borges, and then Circular Ruins is by Borges also. This story basically follows this. They call him the Wizard. It's this wizardly man. He doesn't get any backstory, but it's this wizard who comes to some, basically these ancient ruins in this kind of tribal civilization, and he comes in his canoe in the middle of the night, and he pulls up on the bank, and he comes into these ancient ruins, these circular ruins on the ground with this old statue that could be like a horse or a tiger, and he has his purpose. It says the purpose which guided him was not impossible, though supernatural. He wanted to dream a man. He wanted to dream him in minute entirety and impose him on reality. Basically, his project is to sit and meditate in these ruins and create life, create a man out of nothing. But in order to do this, he has to meditate and dream for as long as it takes to go detail by detail, dreaming up every millimeter of every part of this man that he's trying to create. And it talks about how his dreams start out chaotic, and then he's able to figure out kind of what's happening, and he ends up kind of meeting in his dreams with this deity that these natives worshipped at these ruins, and he makes a pact with this deity who tells him that he will help this wizard create life, create this pupil basically, but he has to give him over to the deity to worship this deity. It talks about like when he wakes up from his dreams, the natives like help him, they bring him supplies, and then he immediately, like after he eats, he immediately goes back to sleep, and he is working with this deity to sculpt and create the perfect kind of student, almost like his son. And when it's finally complete, he has to wipe his memory, so he has no memory of his creation, and he has to give him over to this deity. And after he gives him over to the deity, he's finished with his job, and he is awakened from his sleep, and he awakens to find out that basically the ruins and this jungle that he is in have caught fire, and the entire ruins are falling down around him, and he's kind of accepted his death in this fire. And as he's engulfed in the flames, he realizes that he's not dying because he was never really alive, because someone had created him just as he had created his own son and wiped his memory.
Dang.
So this one has a pretty big twist. Spoiler alert. Sorry.
Yeah, you should have given
but
a spoiler
you
alert
should
at
all
the
still
beginning
read
of
it
that.
because the way that the story builds and the way that he realizes it's after he hears that his creation, who has gone off to work with this deity, has also started learning to create life, is when he realizes that he was also a creation of someone else.
Wow.
He understood that he was also an illusion and that someone else was dreaming him.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, those are the stories. There's some other ones. If you want another one that also will kind of blow your mind about, like, blurring dreams and reality, there's another one called The Night Face Up, which is about this man who, in his dreams, is, like, being hunted by, I think, the Aztecs, and he wakes up, he gets into a motorcycle accident and goes into a coma, and in his dreams he's being hunted by the Aztecs, and when he wakes up, he's in the hospital, but slowly, as he drifts back and forth between his dreams and reality, he doesn't know which one is real and which one's not, and as the natives kind of catch him and are ready to sacrifice him, he doesn't know whether or not he's going to wake up in the hospital, or whether he's going to die at the hands of the natives. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Magical realism is just such a fun genre.
It really
It's
is.
such
yeah.
a cool. You don't hear it talked about enough,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think it was
It's like
more
one of the most
prominent.
intriguing.
Yeah, it's like it didn't really gain popularity in America so much. I feel like as much as it did in South America, but I'm really glad
Well, that's
to have
like
had Dr.
literally
E.
all of Guillermo del Toro's.
Right, that's
Yes,
what he
exactly,
does.
Yeah.
So
I
you
like
watch
he
Pan's
is-
Labyrinth.
Popularity is
Exactly.
because
Right.
his stuff is so much different than anything else
Right.
that's out there.
He's, like,
which is why it's
bringing it.
gaining popularity now
Yeah.
because it's now more front and center.
Right.
Yeah, he's like bringing magical realism to the States, I feel like.
Which-
Which he's been doing since like
yeah.
the beginning of his career,
Right.
but
And he's using his, I mean, the way that he incorporates his heritage
Yeah.
and stories from, you know, where he's from into just kind of these films that become more mainstream in America. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's such a fun genre.
Yeah.
Those are really cool. I'll have to take a look at those. I
Yeah,
don't think I've ever.
take a look at those. I'll put links to them in the description of the episode.
Good.
And
And on our Twitter and stuff.
on Twitter and yeah.
wow,
So that's my thing.
that's so cool.
Yeah.
Yay! Cool thing.
Cool thing.
I like that thing.
I like that thing too.
So I think we're gonna throw it over to our best friend. Guest friend.
Guest friend.
Ooh.
Friend.
Okay,
Oh,
we're gonna
that's
throw
really
it over to our
cute.
first guest friend, Rose.
Okay.
What do you got?
Okay, well, I'm gonna switch gears a little bit.
It's okay.
There is an ice cream
Ice
truck
cream
outside.
man. Ice cream man.
I want to, oh my god.
Your dad just was like.
Is he outside?
Yeah, he just went out of the garage and he was like, "Who is that?"
Okay, yeah. I'm gonna switch gears a little bit into like the more art world
Love.
conversation.
What else?
Yeah.
That's where my nerdiness comes out like the most. I feel like.
Yeah.
And so, I find this controversy that I'm about to talk about just so fascinating.
It's not Kanye and Pete Davidson, is it?
Oh my god, no! It's
Okay.
not Kanye.
I was about to
Pete
say,
Davidson.
Just
we
making
talked
sure.
about
I'm
this
talking about the
all
fine art world, but
Okay,
the Kanye
love.
Pete Davidson thing is getting out of hand.
It is.
We don't need to talk. That's not this kind
It's
of
not-
podcast.
No. But I will just say that it is a little cuckoo bananas.
It's-
Yeah.
Well, it is. He's all of them are cuckoo bananas.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Yeah. It's Hollywood, baby.
So
You're
I'm
telling me
gonna-
there's like drama in the fine art
Oh my
world?
gosh, there
Is
is
this
drama,
Thomas
but you
Kincaid?
wouldn't
It's a
believe-
bunch
it is
of
not
dramatic
Okay, I know that.
people.
It's
That's
not,
true.
Yeah, it's not Thomas Kincaid and it's not Jeff Koons. Although I have a little side note about Jeff Koons.
I don't think I know
Oh,
Jeff
gee, I think I
Koons.
might
Wait,
know
who's
what it
Jeff
is,
Koons?
but I want you to say it so I can feel vindicated.
Okay, well, so I want to talk about the Vanta Black controversy.
Oh,
Yes,
I do actually
knew-
know about
yes,
this.
As soon as you're like fine art controversy.
Oh, Jeff Koons is the balloon guy.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we don't need to talk about. I'll
Okay,
talk about
we
Jeff
won't
Koons
talk
in a
about Jeff
second
Koons. I just had to look him
because
up because I knew I knew the name. I didn't know
I
I
have
knew
so
him.
many feelings
I'm-
about Jeff Koons.
I'm
It's
so excited
awful.
for your topic now because
Okay,
I know
nice.
exactly. I
Doesn't
know
he
this
steal
topic.
art?
This
Jeff
is
Koons?
he doesn't.
We're not talking about Jeff
Okay,
Koons.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're going to talk about Anish Kapoor and Stuart Semple
Yes.
and the Vanta Black controversy.
Okay.
Because there has been some updates. Things have been actually
Oh, really?
recently happening that are interesting that I feel like
I'm so excited.
you would enjoy. So, just to give a little bit of background, Anish Kapoor is an artist, installation artist, sculptor, whatever you want to call it. People would know him from The Bean in Chicago, Cloudgate.
Right, I forgot that
is
he did The
his.
Bean.
Yeah.
Yes, that's his.
He hates when people call it the
I
bean.
know,
too.
it's
He
not
hates
The
exactly
Bean,
why I
which
call
is
it the
why we
bean.
call it The
Exactly,
Bean.
which is why we call it The Bean. He also has an installation at the Jerusalem Museum.
Yeah.
Is he really?
Yeah.
What
It's
is it?
very cool. It's called The World Upside Down or something like that. And it's like a big metallic mirrored like funnel almost. It looks
So like The Bean almost?
Yeah, it's exactly the same
His specialty
material.
is
That's
bean.
his thing. So people don't like him because he's kind of just an asshole.
Yeah, he's like a douche.
It's
Yeah.
like an inverted bean.
Yeah, it's
like the
an
negative
it's
space
like
of the bean.
Yeah. It's
He's
really,
like, people
it's
can't know me
interesting.
from just the bean. I have to make something
Other
different.
shiny
The world upside
things.
down.
It's like
Yeah.
the metal
Inside
that
of
he
bean.
cut out of when he made the bean. It was
like,
just this
all right, well, I
scrap
have
metal.
all this metal.
Yeah. So that's like a little bit about who he is. And so Vanta Black, okay, so I'm going to start kind of like at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2014, Surrey Nanosystems is the company that released this material called Vanta Black, which absorbs 99.97% of light, and basically
The black is black.
yeah, it's the black. It's the blackest black that could be produced, and Anish Kapoor began to use this right when it was released in 2016. Anish Kapoor started to use it like in all of his works. He was doing everything with this. He was like, I'm going to push the limits of this material into a place that nobody has ever done before, and in doing
Which is
so,
easy when nobody's ever made anything with that material.
Right. It was brand
Like,
new, so he was like,
He's like, I'm
the
gonna
first one to see
revolutionize
it.
this material that just got released.
Yeah.
Cool, dude. People are gonna go further than you in
Right.
2 seconds, which is why he got so defensive over it. But
So he basically was like, I'm the only person who can use this material properly, so
Fuck
I'm
off.
going to buy the rights to it. And that is the craziest thing ever, because
that's like
how do you buy the rights to a color?
that's like Vincent Van Gogh being like, I'm the only one allowed to use oil paints.
Like,
I'm
Wait,
the
I've
only
never
one.
heard this before.
No, it's because it didn't happen.
no,
I
it's
thought
not
this
real,
was.
no.
I was like, that would have changed my perception of Van Gogh a little
No,
bit.
no.
but people
Okay.
have
Van Gogh's a
like
sweetie.
signature colors all the time.
Yeah.
Like
Signature
the-
color is different from
But they-
saying nobody
they go,
else is
"No
allowed
one
to
else
use
used this color."
Right.
Right. So he was like,
Or like Van Gogh
this
saying,
is
no one
mine,
else can
and
use
if
yellow.
you want to
No one
use
else can paint stars.
Right. So he said, this is mine, and if you want to use this Vanta Black, you have to pay me for it. And
Oh, shut up.
that's already, like, in the art world, a no-no, because
Yeah.
we don't make art for money. That's like
Art to make art.
for the most part, which is why I have problems with Jeff Koons. I was going to segue into Jeff Koons about
Yeah.
that. Like, Jeff Koons does everything in his power
And
to
Thomas Kincaid.
monetize his art, and it's like, you're really just like, we just know. We know you're doing it for the money, and you're not doing it for the sake of, like, expression or to say anything, and that's
Yeah.
my biggest issue with Jeff Koons is, like,
Yeah.
at least say something with your work. Like, giant balloons, you're not saying anything anymore about consumerism, whatever.
But they're also shiny.
They
They're
are
so
shiny.
oh my gosh. But you know what?
Shiny.
And like, a lot of artists do this too, but for some reason when Jeff Koons does it, it makes me mad. He has like a like, his studio is like a staff. Paintings that have been made by Jeff Koons within the last like 15 years were not actually made by him.
Wait,
just
he
signed
paints
his
too?
name. Yeah, so he just like, he has all these people on staff, which is not like, Kehinde Wiley also does this, but at least when Kehinde Wiley
Kehinde Wiley has a staff?
has, yeah, Kehinde
I didn't
Wiley's,
know
but
that.
that's like a prestigious. His thing is like, it's like an art mentorship where you go and you like apprentice with him
And like learn his
you
style.
learn
It's
his
not like
style,
you're
you help him
That's
with
painting
his-
for him and then he's like,
Right.
He's
But he's like
incredible.
an actual
He's one of the
artist where he
only
sits
artists
and
I
he
remember
works-
from school, and he's incredible.
Yeah, he's amazing. His
Yeah.
portrait of Obama, like
Yes.
everything
Yeah.
is just so, everything he does, I just love him so much.
And his work has
when
real
his staff,
meaning.
Yeah, and when
Yes, exactly.
when his artists paint with him, they're painting with him alongside him. Whereas when Jeff Koons has artists, he's got like a studio workshop in like a warehouse setup, and he just like walks around and is like telling people how to mix colors and like color match and do what he wants, and it's like, dude,
That's annoying.
it's just so annoying.
I always forget
Anyway.
that people have staff.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of big artists, like, they can't produce their work on that large scale
Exactly.
without other people to help them. But anyway, going back into Anish Kapoor, So fast forwarding just like a little bit, he has now bought the rights to this Vanta Black, and the world is like out of their mind. The art world is just like, you asshole. This is not how art works. You can't exclusively take something like this. Everything in the art world is a collaboration. The whole point is like you steal from other artists to create your own art. It's like every art is a collaboration. That was like the argument. And so for him to take this color was like just so backwards. So now we're fast forwarding a little bit more to after this whole thing is kind of like getting to the peak. And another artist, Stuart Semple, who is just a cool guy also.
I love him.
He's
He's
a very
the best.
cool guy.
And
I don't know
he's
him.
so funny. Like all the things he does
I
is out
had
of spite and is just to
Yeah.
piss Anish Kapoor specifically off.
Yeah.
Oh, I do know him.
Yes, you do.
Because I think I know what you're gonna talk about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, you definitely know.
No, I do.
Because we've talked about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stuart Semple was like, this is ridiculous, so I'm gonna come back for this. And he created a new pink that he called the pinkest pink. And it was a pigment. It's like kind of like Vanta Black, where it's so matte, it like everything
Like
looks flat
saturated,
when
yeah.
you
It
paint
like
with it.
it reflects all light except for the most pink.
Like the pink,
Every
yeah.
Exactly.
pink wavelength.
So it's like super, super pink, and he basically was like, this color is for everyone except Anish Kapoor. And if Anish Kapoor wants to use this color, he's got to pay an ridiculous amount of money, and he can use this color, but for everyone else, like, it's free for all artists, but not for Anish Kapoor, which I think is so petty and hilarious.
And it's like the perfect amount of petty.
Yeah.
Like it's not petty enough to like where people are like, come on, dude. It's just like, yeah.
Doesn't
It's
hurt
just-
anybody except for the guy who
Anish
deserves it.
Kapoor. And he, yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. He deserves
Yeah,
to
it
get
was
hurt
like,
a little.
So when you go to buy this pink, when you add it to your cart, it like has a pop-up that says, by adding this to your cart, you are confirming you are not Anish Kapoor. Because if he finds out that Anish Kapoor has this thing, he could like sue him. He just is like,
Because
gonna
he
sue
has the
him.
rights for everybody except for him, so he
right.
could take legal action against
Oh my
Anish Kapoor.
god.
yeah. So
And it's like that with a lot of his stuff, right? Or is it just pink?
Because he also has
well, now there's
right.
okay,
He
so,
has his own black, also
yeah, he
black
has-
2.0,
so
right?
he created Black 2.0, which is like now his version of Vanta Black, which is actually supposed to be even blacker than Vanta Black.
Really?
Yeah.
And he also is like saying it's exclusively not for Anish Kapoor, which is just so good. But Anish Kapoor, being the complete asshole that he is, had one of his staffers buy the pinkest pink for him, and on his Instagram he posted a picture where he dipped his middle finger into the pink and held it up and took a picture of it and posted on his Instagram. And it's just like him giving the middle finger with the pinkest pink, which is like so rude. It's just so rude. Like, why would you do that? You're just antagonizing. So anyway, now Stuart Semple has like a whole line of things like that. He has the blackest black, he has the pinkest pink, he has black 2.0, he's got black 3.0 now, which is a new
Really?
thing.
Mhm.
He's got,
Black Mirror.
yellow
Black Mirror.
and blue now, and he also has the world's glitteriest glitter. He has the world's most glittery glitter, and he has just such cool, it's cool stuff. And for artists who are like trying to find like unique pigments and like colors and things, like, I highly recommend looking at his stuff. It's very cool. And he's got like the white 2.0, which is like supposedly like the whitest, like
The whitest white.
world's brightest white paint.
Yeah, he also has the like world's glitteriest eco-friendly glitter, which is
Yeah.
like biodegradable.
He is a cool artist and he's doing good work. And
Oh yeah, he also
he's-
has watercolors.
Yeah.
I think that's a recent thing. He has
Really?
a watercolor
watercolors, he has
palette.
inks.
Yeah,
He has powders, so you can
holographic
like
pigment kits.
make your own. You
I'm on
can
his
combine
website.
it with whatever materials you want and make your own paints. Diamond dust, which is
yes,
really cool.
the
yeah.
color changing paint, the purple to pink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He
so,
has so much cool stuff, especially in the past like 2 years. I think like a lot of his stuff has really started to pick up. He had the chromiest chrome paint. Also, I love the gag that is everything is the most of something.
right.
Which is not always a gag. A lot of the time it really is that, but I just also love how he just keeps
Mine
just
is better than
rubbing it-
yours.
Yes,
Yes.
rubbing it in Anish
Yeah.
Kapoor's face because he deserves that.
So I just found that the Black 2.0, which is now Black 3.0 because they've projected it went on the market in 2019, developed by MIT, absorbs 99.99% of light.
That's crazy.
That is
which
crazy.
is insane.
I would love to make a piece with that. That would be so cool.
I want to see
So
it in
it's-
person. You
it
see
sucks
pictures of it and it's
because-
weird, but I want to know how weird it is to see. Have you ever
It's
seen it in
weird.
person? You
There
went to a
was
fancy art school, I
something-
assume.
Yeah, there was some exhibit that I saw at the Art Institute once where there was like a little thing, but it wasn't anything like
crazy.
But it sucks because Anish Kapoor, like his first or one of his early works that he did with Vanta Black was actually really interesting, and if it was
Yeah.
anybody else who made it, so what it was is he basically had like this white room, like classic white cube art gallery,
installation, yeah.
and he distressed the whole room so it looked like really, really gross and old and run down, and then he painted in the center of the room a circle, and it looked like with Vanta Black, and it just
Yeah,
looks like a black
big hole. Yeah, it
and
is.
like you can't
Whoa,
it's scary
I'm looking
to
at
look
pictures
at.
of it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
objectively, it is a very cool piece.
It is very cool and it's very interesting, and it fucking sucks because I don't
want
want
to like his art.
it.
Well,
I
the thing
really
is
don't wanna
that
like it.
there's like maybe 2 pieces in his entire career that I'm like, wow, that's actually cool and might have some meaning to it.
Right.
The bean is just a bean. They call it Cloudgate.
bean is-
That's not it.
No,
Cloud
it's
Gate.
bean.
Is not If anybody asks you what it is, it's the bean. Just say the bean because it will piss him off.
He has a big like art installation in a park somewhere that literally just looks like a vagina. Like if you look up Anish Kapoor, it's like the 5th image that comes up.
And it's also
It's the
crazy
third image
because
that
like
comes
Is
up, in
it?
fact.
it's also crazy because like artists have been having like signature colors that they use throughout
Yeah.
like the entirety of art history. Like
Yes.
artists always have, and I think one of the best examples is Yves Klein,
Mm-hmm.
who did that, which people remember because he painted it in 1960, 1950 something.
Yeah.
And it's just blue. It's just
Yeah.
like his very
Right.
signature blue. And people, I remember in like the mid 2000s, were like going crazy because it was sold for like 4 points.
Well, yeah, because they're like they just
$1 million.
painted the canvas blue.
Right.
I'm like, okay, well
but
that's not
it's
the
his
point.
like very specific mixture of blue that
Blue.
he created, and
And
it's
that's
like
signature to him and his career, and it's
Right.
very representative of what he does as an artist. It's not about the fact that he just painted a
Right.
canvas blue. It's
And
about
he
the fact that
also-
it was him.
he also didn't need to buy the color in order to like have people understand that it's like his signature, you know, like
Exactly.
he could just do it, and because he's a good artist, he could rely on his
And
art
it-
rather than the
Yes, and
monetization
exactly, and
of it.
because he has great art, people are going to pay money for it because they respect him and admire him as an artist.
Yeah.
It's not about the skill level. It's not about anything like that. He's incredibly talented and skilled, but it's also about the reputation that
Right.
he carries. So
Yeah. While I'm looking about Yves Klein, there's like it's talking about all these different ways that different specific colors are made. Like ultramarine blue is made with powdered lapis lazuli, which is why it's so expensive and
Yeah.
hard to buy. And then it's also talking about this recipe for mummy brown that actually includes ground up mummies and has not been
What?
produced since the early 20th century
Yeah.
because of the dwindling supply of
mummies.
mummies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
That's so
just-
funny.
They just put mummies in there?
Put mummies in there.
So interesting. And also, the other thing that bothers me about him buying Vanta Black, he didn't create it at all. He didn't
Right.
have any
He has no right
hand
to
in this work in this paint. Like
and
he has no.
it's so discrediting to the
claim to
people
it.
who did the research and put in the work to actually create this thing, and then Anish Kapoor's like, mine.
Yeah.
I like that one a lot. It's mine now. Like, no.
It's a really good
Like,
example of like
ugh.
the selfishness of really rich, like acclaimed
Pretentious artists.
And it pokes a lot of holes in the fine art world, which I love.
Yeah.
I love doing. I love like pointing out all
Love
the flaws
drama.
of the art world. And also, yeah, like you were saying at the beginning of this segment, like you were like, drama in the fine art world. There is so
Yeah.
much
So much
drama in the
drama.
fine art world. Like for
It's
real.
just a bunch of pretentious rich people a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Fighting with each other about how big their dicks are. I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of cool parts and lovely parts of it, but a lot of the times it's just dick swinging contest, I guess.
Yeah, that's it. That's
a
all.
Oh,
good
thank you. That was a really good one. Yeah.
Really like that topic.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I was
Yeah.
going back and forth between a bunch of different topics, so
I
We'll
feel
do another
like-
one next time.
I landed on this one. But
Yeah, well, I mean, like, this is not the last time you'll be on the show.
Yes.
So.
yes, I'm coming back.
You're definitely coming back.
All right, it's my turn.
Camden's turn.
It's my topic turn.
Let's go.
So this week I'm talking about Coco, the gorilla. Notably best friends with Robin Williams, had a
Right.
kitten.
Yes. Yes.
And was a very sweet gorilla.
The monkey who talked.
Monkey who talked, but she's not a monkey because it's a gorilla.
The gorilla who talked.
Gorilla.
There you go.
There we go.
So I'm honestly very proud of myself. It took me 4 episodes to get into zoology. You're welcome. So I watched a video by this guy named Soup Emporium about why Coco the gorilla probably couldn't talk.
Does he also make videos about soup?
I don't know the answer to that.
That's
Okay.
a great name.
It is
It's
a
a
good
good
name.
name.
I don't know the answer to that. This is the first video and only video I've watched by him, but it was really lovely, so I think I'll probably be going into more of his other stuff.
What was the name of the video again?
Why Coco the gorilla probably couldn't talk. Sorry.
That's very discouraging.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, no, the thing is that it goes into all of the details of why we want animals to talk, why animals can't talk the way we want them to, and basically the whole backstory behind the 70s through the 90s. There was a whole chunk of time where they were directing all of this science into primates and like-minded mammals that are similar enough to us that we could see them developing an affinity for language. And it was always a theory that if you taught them from a young enough age that they could learn language. But the thing is that it's not as straightforward as that. So there's this guy named Noam Chomsky, and yes.
Yes.
He's the guy
Noam Chomsky or Noam Chomsky?
Noam,
Because
N-O-A-M.
I know 2 different versions, and one of them is an angry gnome who likes to chomp people, and the other is a musician.
Shout out Troll Hunters.
Shout out Troll Hunter, shout out Guillermo del Toro.
Guillermo del Toro.
This is neither one of those. I don't know if he's a musician. I know he's
No, he's a philosopher, isn't he?
he's a linguist.
He's a linguist.
He's a
That's
linguist.
So basically, his whole theory is basically about how humans are innately different from anything else on the planet, and how we have kind of deemed ourselves the most intelligent species on the planet, which is here nor there. We don't know what's going on in the minds of any other animal, really.
Dolphins.
Yeah, and pigs and crows and other very intelligent species like piranhas and stuff like that.
Never heard piranhas before.
They have facial recognition
What?
Yeah.
How do we know that?
because they will recognize people that feed them and will recognize faces, but they don't
Interesting.
recognize
Wow.
strangers. There's big studies into the inner workings of different species' brains and how they work and what they can remember, what they can't remember. It's the same thing of squirrels can't have a good locational memory to remember where they buried food for the winter, but they don't have good charismatic skills because they're not social animals.
Their brains are the size of.
Yes,
A
exactly,
llama.
but
Yeah.
they can remember where they buried things 5 months ago.
Oh, wow.
But
But they
like
can't,
a herd of cows are very good at socializing with each other, but they don't have memories like that because
Right.
they have no evolutionary need to have that.
Right.
It's all a big thing about evolution and it branching off into a bunch of different patterns about how it will most uniquely benefit that species. And his whole thing is how humans evolved differently. His whole theory is that language is innate to all people. We are predestined to know language. We are predestined to communicate with each other through verbal or physical language, body language, ASL, and spoken word. Written language is kind of in there too, but it came later in evolution. And what the animal language study was trying to do was prove him wrong. They were trying to say that other animals have the ability to speak. They haven't evolved that far yet.
But they could
But they
ostensibly
But
be
if
taught.
we teach them that, we could speed that up and kind of teach them, and they'll teach the next generation.
Interesting.
And then it'll
Yes.
just be Planet of the Apes.
We
yes.
could teach them how to
talk.
how to begin
That's
evolving to speak.
terrifying.
It's terrifying. But the good news is that's not how it works. There is a gorilla or chimp before Coco. His name was Nim, and they were teaching him sign language as well. And how they thought it would work would be like a bunch of monkeys smashing on a keyboard. If you have enough output, then it will eventually hit the gold mine and they'll be speaking a word that makes sense in the context.
Right.
But the truth is that's not how kids work. Kids work by experimenting with babbling and learning how to phonetically talk with their mouths or with ASL if they're deaf or mute or anything like that. It is even deaf children, even mute children will babble with ASL to get a feeling of communication. It is evolutionary. It is studied that even kids who cannot physically babble, who cannot hear themselves talk or who do not talk, still babble. It is just how we learn how to communicate with each other. It's just
We
how
have
we
to make
learn
noises.
exactly and how to
We're also animals. We have to make
Exactly.
noises.
And so that theory of monkeys hitting a keyboard doesn't work because
They don't
that's
babble.
not what happens. If a monkey's hitting a keyboard, they're going to infinitely babble because they don't know what a word is.
to even accidentally make a
To
word.
even accidentally make a word. And the thing is that these keepers that were keeping him did not know ASL. They did not know sign language outside of the context of teaching a primate to speak ASL.
So they didn't even know like what they were looking for.
First, that's the first flaw.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And there's a whole thing of an interviewer who was talking to somebody who did know ASL and was watching him for the day and did not reward him barely at all because he could not recognize anything as an actual sign. It was just nonsense that he was doing to get rewarded, to get fed, to get played with, to get anything.
It was like memorizing.
It's
instead of
just
Right.
like a
actually-
dog memorizing a command.
Right.
And that's not saying that chimps and dogs are equal in intelligence. It's just the same prospect.
Well-
Animals will thrive off of rewards. We thrive off of rewards. It's just an innate behavior. If you are rewarding something for the wrong... If you're rewarding a being for the wrong action, they're going to keep repeating it
They're not
because
learning
they
anything
don't
from it.
understand that that's wrong.
Well, I want to know why they didn't actually hire anybody who could sign.
Because
like,
they
would have
didn't-
figured this out way earlier.
Well, the thing is that part of it was that gorillas don't have as dexterous of hands as we do. So what they called the gorilla signing language, that they called it GSL. And then I'll get into Coco and her keeper. Her keeper's name is Penny Patterson. And Penny's main theory was that Nim did not learn because he was passed from keeper to keeper to researcher to researcher. He never had one person that he could really treat as a mother or father figure, nobody to take care of him. His life is actually very sad, which is heartbreaking. And I'm very glad that this kind of experiments aren't really done anymore, because as much as it is very cool to see the biological and structural differences in between our brains and to see how we evolved versus our closest ancestors, it's not right. And it's not the life that they're meant to live. But all of the videos that she released of Coco are her prompting her to say things. She never talks independently. She never talks just to
Really?
talk.
So
Yep.
it was like
Why was that not
fake.
Because
public?
it was
Not like why was that
because
not
it
the
was a
aspect that
whole
was
thing
publicized?
of being fake.
It was fake.
She was there was no scientific evidence that is not doctored or is not
cherry pick.
That's crazy.
to be in her favor.
Even her talking to Robin Williams.
That's crazy.
Yes.
This was like a huge
a
phenomenon.
huge thing. I mean, Coco passed away in 2019 or 2018. So only
Yeah.
4 years ago.
It was a huge deal.
It was a huge deal. She made a appeal to the world about the Paris Agreement, and she was like this big emotional thing. But what you don't see is in the description of that video, they say that all of these clips are taken from hours of footage where they're prompting her to say things.
Have they declassified all of that footage by now? Is that
Yeah, it's
like
on Snopes is false.
Wow.
who came forward with all of this? Who was the whistleblower? It was
I
like,
forget
nope.
the name of the guy, but
The Cocoa whistleblower.
Yeah.
it basically was people that were proving Chomsky correct, being like, there is no human linguists and animal behaviorists are coming forward and being like, this is not how this works. You cannot mix the two together and doctor it into a way that it looks like it works and fool the world into thinking that you've made some biological breakthrough when you have done nothing. You've taught a dog how to sit. That's what you've done. And
Wow.
That's pretty crazy.
This is what
is
happens
crazy.
when we try to play God.
Yes, exactly. And
It's really crazy when you think of like the broader scope of like interacting with animals and how that's such like a big part of human discovery
yes,
is
exactly.
like trying to interact with animals.
and
The whole thing is fake.
the whole thing is that why are we so driven to interact with animals?
Right.
It's because we want to interact with them. We like
Right.
them, and we want to anthropomorphize anything that we can about them. It's why we talk to our dogs and cats, and I talk to my snakes. Snakes don't have ears. They can't. They literally cannot hear
Literally
me.
can't hear you.
But I still talk to them,
I mean,
and I
sometimes
still personify them.
I talk to my cat a lot, and sometimes
Yeah.
he listens. Sometimes I think he knows what I'm saying.
Exactly.
But maybe not.
We want to believe that they know what we're saying because we love them. And that's not saying that they don't love us just because they can't understand us.
Right.
They are still seeking out as much affection as we are seeking out a lot of the time. And it's because we have the domestic lineage with them. We've been domesticating these animals for hundreds of thousands of years.
Right.
I mean, go back to wild wolves and
right.
one wolf who decided to hang out with a human that was feeding him well.
Right.
And that's how it all started. And that's why we have dogs like Chihuahuas that look nothing like wolves. It's because we jerry-rigged
They have
the
anger,
breed
though.
and we played God a little bit. And now we have hundreds of thousands of dog breeds, cat breeds, birds, snake morphs, all of this wild stuff.
Snakes were never meant to be pets. I'm sorry.
No, they weren't. But it's so interesting why we as humans, we want that bond, we want that connection with anything that will share that connection with us. I mean,
And we
even-
want so badly to believe it when we
yes,
see
exactly.
it.
So we will just believe completely false
Right.
information that has no scientific backup. I mean, she wrote scientific papers that her references aren't even, they're nothing.
That's crazy.
It's garbage.
You know,
Penny
things like-
Patterson, all of her tapes with Coco are edited heavily. There's no full, long footage of Coco talking alone. There's no
And nobody
scientific
was
proof.
suspicious of
That's what I'm
this.
A
saying.
lot
like,
of people were suspicious, but a
They
lot
just
of
had
people
no
just
proof.
wanted to believe.
right. People just
Yeah.
The
wanna
power
believe it,
of
and
wanting
so
to
they'll-
believe in a very cool thing and a very cool connection and having that part of the world beamed into ours, you want to believe in it. You want to
Yeah.
think it's cool. I mean, even when I saw the title of this video, I was like, this video is going to make me
It's kind of
upset.
crushing.
Yeah, because you want so badly
Yeah.
to believe.
Well, when you're seeing Robin Williams plastered on magazines with this speaking, talking gorilla that are apparently their best friends and they have this bond, like nobody's gonna look at that and be like, "That's fake."
That's it, exactly. You
So
love
what?
you love Coco, you love Robin Williams, you love Coco's cat, you love
Yeah.
Right.
everything about it. And the thing is that she's allowed to just be a cute gorilla.
She doesn't need to talk.
She doesn't need to talk. You don't need it to be talking for it to be a nice animal. You
It
don't
is
go to the zoo and
interesting.
expect things to be talking at you.
Right.
That's
But
why
it
you
is
go to a
interesting
zoo.
That humans like have always wanted to anthropomorphize.
We don't want to be
animals.
alone. We don't want to be the only
Exactly.
intelligent life form out there, which we
We're
aren't.
terrified of
But
being
the thing is that the intelligence is not. It cannot be measured by how we view intelligence.
right. We think of intelligence as human intelligence, and we measure everything against human intelligence,
Exactly.
which is
But
not
then
always the
you-
correct barometer
yeah.
to measure intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, it's insane how badly we just want that connection with something other than humans. We're so tired of ourselves that we would like something else to talk to.
And we'll fake it till we make it.
Exactly.
So
and
what
I mean,
was
that's
happening
really what
with
she
Robin
did.
Williams?
Yeah, that's
She
a-
had a
What was
very
going
nice
on?
interaction with Robin Williams.
Did he like? I
Did he
wonder
know
if
it was
he
fake?
knew
No.
At all.
But
Because
she was there
how-
prompting her the whole time.
Yes.
And now they're together
Just, like,
somewhere,
standing
and
behind him?
they're talking,
Yes,
they're laughing
because
about.
she
They're
is-
talking about how stupid we all were.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
Well,
she
and the
could
thing
talk
is
to
that
him.
she, what it was is that you can tell she didn't really know sign language because she would use like rhymes in her sign language that audibly sound similar. So there's a time in her interview with Robin where she says nipple instead of people. And vaguely, that sounds phonetically similar. But the signs are two completely, utterly different things. So they're not
So
even
you can tell
correct.
she didn't know the signs. She was just basing
exactly.
it off of
She was just hearing
verbal
things
speech.
and
Verbally
trying
matched
to...
things.
Yes.
Wow.
Which goes back to the people that don't know ASL correctly and teaching this gorilla GSL, but not
Right.
really.
But that also says something else about her intelligence.
Exactly.
She's,
I'm not
she's
discounting
listening,
her
she's trying
her
to figure
intelligence.
It out. Right.
It's just not what we thought it was.
It's
Gorillas
just
are very
different.
smart. There's a reason why they share 99% of our DNA. That is so much DNA. That 1% of DNA is what changes us from them.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so... I think gorillas it's less, but chimpanzees are 99%.
Yeah.
But even then, it's the same thing. The whole project is something that we want so badly to... We want it so badly as a society to believe in. And I mean, in that Paris Agreement video that I was talking about, they used her as a plea for humanity to stop hurting the Earth. She says, like, hurry, run, Earth. I am the flowers. I am an animal. I am nature, which is something an animal cannot understand.
Yeah.
You cannot have an animal that understands metaphors
Wow.
that clearly and then mixes up the word nipple and people. It's just not possible. And
Yeah.
it's just the fact that it did come out. There was a scientist, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he goes about showing all of these inconsistencies and all of these human versus animal behaviors and how child linguistics and animal linguistics cannot match up if you perform them that way. Kids are always going to babble. They are always going to talk to themselves. They are always going to be figuring things out and prompting questions and all of this stuff. Animals are not going to independently do that stuff because they are not interested in that. They are interested in a reward. They are interested in food. They are interested in play. They're not interested in what's going on in their minds all the time. Which is why I think such things as like the bunny, the dog thing on TikTok, I think that's a very interesting project.
Yeah.
And I do think the science behind that is very interesting because a lot of that footage is live footage from her house 24/7.
Right. So
I'm-
that's what
that makes
that's
me
a really
so
interesting question
genuinely
now.
curious of what's real and what's not. How much of it is just asking
Because
for a
I
reward.
would like to believe that
I would
Bunny
love
is
to
learning.
believe. And the thing is
I don't
that
even know if I want to believe it though because it scares me.
would.
Because we want, again, it's another thing about she is a researcher. The person who owns Bunny, I believe, is a researcher who is
Yeah.
conducting these projects with her dog Bunny and her other dog who I'm forgetting the name of.
This is like a clinical trial. They're like
Exactly.
trying
They're
to figure out if
recording
this-
all
Yeah.
of this data and seeing if she's learning or if it's just something that she is trained to do.
But
For
that
those of
is
you who don't
crazy.
know, Bunny the dog is all over TikTok, and it's this dog who uses this set of buttons that she steps on to speak with her owner, and some of the stuff she said, she asks
Sometimes-
existential questions.
Sometimes she
it
looks in
gets
the- okay.
really.
There's a
this
video
TikTok
of her looking in the mirror.
and
Yeah.
pressing the buttons.
She says like, "What is Bunny?"
like,
or "Who am I?" Something
why
like that.
Bunny?
Why
It's
Bunny?
Why? But she's
Yeah.
looking in the mirror and she hits the buttons. Why Bunny? And is just staring at herself. And it like reminds me of that
Rick and Morty?
Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
Like, what is my purpose? Your purpose is to pass butter. Just staring into the mirror, pondering
Yeah.
life. But like after this, now I'm like, well, maybe it's
Well, the
just
thing is that
they
we
accidentally-
can't really tell because
Right.
all research that has been done mostly with chimps and other pong'ids. So this is really the first canine interaction of something along that line, as far as I know, and I've done a little bit of research into
Very
it
interesting.
because it's such an interesting topic to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I love zoology anyways, but seeing how zoology and animal and human interaction can come together to tell us why gorillas and chimps and monkeys can't use language like we can.
Yeah, right. It teaches us more about ourselves.
Exactly.
Right.
There's another thing going back to like how they didn't really know ASL or any sort of sign is that they weren't really treating it like a language. They were really just kind of making up their own rules. They weren't applying the grammar rules that is in ASL because there are its own language. It has its own dialects.
Right.
It has its own regional differences, just like any other language would. And I think people are surprised to hear that because they're like, you're just making movements with your hands, but that's a lot of a hearing privilege, and it's not. And
English Sign Language can't translate into a different language.
No, I mean, I think it's like French Sign Language and American Sign Language are more closely related than English Sign Language is.
Yeah, it's like very different. Wow.
It's so different because of how it was formed and how we all talk. And they're completely ignoring the grammar rules when they're teaching these gorillas phrases. And they said that she mastered like 2,000 something phrases, but she's only really half doing them. And it's only when she's prompted to do them. And a lot of the time she's just saying things to hope that it's the right thing. In hopes that that's what they want her to talk about. And a lot of the times in these interviews, she's like, I think it's with Mr. Rogers, they're doing an interview, and they're like, oh, do you want to talk about love? And she's like, candy. Do you want to talk about love? Like, and like prompting her until Penny Patterson does the sign for love. And then Coco's like, oh, love, right. And then she gets a treat.
So it really is just all fake.
And
so
it's the thing is that it's heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. You want so badly to believe that these animals are capable of something more, but the truth is that they are probably capable of something more. It's just not something that we can see, and it's not something that we can measure the intelligence of. I mean, there's that whole Michael from Vsauce, what's his YouTube show?
It's not Minefield.
Yes.
Mindfreak.
He has a whole episode where he goes to visit this research facility that's also doubling as a sanctuary, and these gorillas have the reaction time to remember sequences of numbers that is so much faster than humans. And what it has proven is that they traded their ability for language for their ability to quickly do sequences of numbers, which is how it translates in the wild of like hunting and gathering, of counting a herd, of making sure everybody is safe, of having to always count. But we don't need to do that anymore. We created language so that it could do that for us.
Right.
And it's like Michael from Vsauce, who is one of the smartest, he's a very intelligent man, doing these tests up against I forget if it's a chimp or a gorilla. And she's doing a whole sequence of like 13 numbers. It'll flash on the screen for 0.5 seconds, and then it'll go off and she'll get it perfectly correct.
Wow.
But Michael from Vsauce, I'm just going to be called
Michael from Vsauce. Yeah.
That's
Michael
his
from
full name.
Vsauce.
He gets like 5 of them, and then they start getting faster, and he's unable to keep up. This Pongit is just there crushing him. And it's just how we evolved to be different. It's that 1% change in DNA, and I just think it is fascinating.
So I guess the thing is, like, if we want to actually, like, we gotta change our
We
perception
can't think of it like
how we
humans.
want to, exactly. Like, if we're gonna try to study animal language and, like, interaction and communication, then we need to stop measuring them up to humans because it's completely different.
And
Albert
the thing is
Einstein,
that, like,
teach a fish to climb a tree, something like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
So
especially
it's not
after
a new,
being...
it's not a new theory.
No,
Yeah.
but we're understanding it a lot more now.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is that after I've been a dog trainer for forever, so I know that communication. I know their brains because it's easy for me to understand because we're so vastly different from them. You know, they are a lot more one-track minded. They obviously have complex emotions. It's proven that they do. There's dogs that go through depression and grief and happiness, excitement, fear, anxiety, all of these complex emotions that at one point in time we really believed was centric to humans is not. But the one thing that is different is how they communicate versus how we communicate. And I mean, even that's something that we're still learning about. I mean, the whole thing about alpha, omega, whatever, that is completely disproven.
Yeah.
And the guy who founded that theory has spent the rest of his career trying to say it's wrong.
Right.
Because it is wrong. He was doing all of his studies on wolves in captivity. There was no wild setting studies going on. But yeah, I just think zoology mixed with human communication and how it all ties back to evolution and why we created these ties in our brains that need to be used for certain pathways in our lives. And why things like language make sense for us but just don't make sense for other animals. And I just think it's really cool.
It is very cool.
I love zoology.
There was something, I'm trying to figure out if I can find it. I saw an article recently about some new discovery about, I think it was dolphins, like a new
Of course it's
discovery
dolphins.
about dolphin intelligence.
Yeah,
and I
they're
was like,
hyper intelligent.
these we're gonna have Planet of the Dolphins before we have Planet of the Apes.
Yeah,
That's what
I'm
feeling
sure.
Like.
I've read
It's like
Hitchhiker's Guide.
dolphins and pigs are like
Yes,
some of the most
So long and thanks for all the fish.
Yep.
most intelligent species out there.
They're just
And then
waiting.
you have like jellyfish, which don't even have a brain, which I love.
Right.
It's just, I love the vast difference in the animal kingdom and how evolution has really, it is what drives
It's very
each thing forward and gives us all of the skill sets we have. And it is just so interesting and it's very comforting to me.
Yeah.
I came from a long line of other humans and they came from a long line of other chimps, and we are this way for a reason. And that reason is to make a podcast, I guess.
And on that note,
That's our episode this
that was
time.
that was a great topic.
I really like that.
Yeah,
It's
really
a good
cool.
video.
Really
I'll add that to the description and I'll put it on Twitter.
Yeah,
Cool,
and
yeah.
I'll
stuff.
give you all my links and stuff too.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was this week.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to Kick Butt Turbo Nerds.
Yeah.
That's the podcast that might be about
Talking apes
talking apes and evil artists
and libraries
and maybe some infinite libraries.
Yep.
Yeah, follow us
At-
on
yeah.
Twitter and Instagram, KBTN
Yeah.
Podcast.
And then if you guys have any other obsessions or suggestions or questions or anything that you feel might be a good topic or you want us to talk about on the show, feel free to email us at kbtnpodcast@gmail.com.
And maybe if you want to be a guest, let us know
Let
and we
us
can try
know,
to squeeze
because
you on.
I really liked having a guest on the show.
Yeah,
As much
3
as I-
people
as much
is
as
a
I-
fun dynamic.
yeah, as
I
much as I
understand why
love you, Neil,
most podcasts have 3 people.
Yeah, and as much as I love you and you're my best friend, it was nice to have Rosie.
Yeah, it was nice.
It was nice to be here. Thanks for having me. I had a really
Yeah.
fun time.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, thanks for
And for
being
being our first,
Yes.
what do we say?
Guest friend.
Guest friend.
First guest
Our
friend.
first guest
I'm honored,
friend, yay.
and I'll come back if you want me.
Yeah.
Oh, of course, please do.
And more of so many more topics. Good job. Brad.
Until next time, kick some nerd butts.
Turbo style.
Yeah, outro
Outro music.